Welcome to the Zachrilege cast. Geoff Cooper, aka Blue Collar Heathen. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Zach. It's really cool being here, and I'm looking forward to having a discussion here and on the podcast. Yeah, I think it's going to be a real good time.
And well, thank you. Thank you for having hope and positivity. That's a good thing to have heading into the show. I will introduce for the watchers and listeners too the beers for the evening. So Terrapin Moohoo's. This is a chocolate milk stout from a brewery in Athens, Georgia. And they do this thing called a variant. This is the same beer with salted caramel. So I have both tonight. I'm going for a trend. I was like, oh, this is a local brewery that actually sold out to a big corporation. So it's kind of like our Senate. So that's what I was, the theme for the evening. But we'll be getting into current events and health and all that just a little bit down the road. So I usually like to start with an out of context quote, but in your case, there's no way to take this out of context. This is just what it is. So the quote is, "Hey Frank, you're a fucking schmuck."
Yeah. That was what was that? That was when I was calling out Pope Francis.
Yeah, exactly. It leads into kind of the the opener, the one-on-one type question. So how did you decide to start a show? Because you're a YouTuber, one of those video types. I'm kind of straddling the fence, but you're on that side of it all. But what kind of finally pushed you over the edge? Because I feel like it took you a little time to get there to actually start doing content.
It did. I was on YouTube for a long time under a bunch of various names. I was on as 41 Duck. I was on as a Clown to the Left and Rocket Medic. And I was on YouTube since 2008 or 2009 or something like that. And I started uploading content just in February of last year. It was at the end of February of last year. So this is about a year for the channel. Well, a year and a smidge, a year and a month. But what finally got me from the idea of wouldn't it be cool if to, and now I'm hitting record, was not only the disgusting revelations of the Pennsylvania paper that outlined decades of systematic child rape by the Catholic Church here, mostly centered in the Harrisburg diocese, which is the area in which I serve on the ambulance. But also, Pope Francis decided that he was going to respond to I think it was Cardinal Pell's sentencing or something. Pope Francis said something stupid, and I had a disagreement with His Holiness, the Vicar of Christ on Earth. So I just hit record and called him out. And hey Frankie, you're a freaking schmuck. Knock it off. Somebody had to tell him.
Now, when I first saw that video and some responses you did, I assumed that you were like a Catholic growing up, but that wasn't the case, right?
That was not the case. No. I may be. There was an extremely high Catholic demographic where I grew up. I grew up right outside New York City, and my family tried to make me Protestant. And that didn't work, because by the time I got to church and started going to Sunday school and all that, I could already read, and I'd already read some of the Greek and Roman and Norse myths of their gods and their heroes. So when we got to church, it was a United Methodist church. It was like, oh, cool. Well, I've read some of these. Now we get to read about the Jewish the Jewish stories. That ought to be neat. And it was not neat. they like, I didn't see, there wasn't anything as cool going on in the Bible as there was in some of the Greek hero myths or the Norse hero myths. And, they didn't have any cool monsters to fight. They didn't have any, anything real thing going on. It was a bunch of boring, dry, very dull language. And, I read it and understood it as culture myths. And it was quite shocking to me to realize, after a couple of years, that there were adults, grown-ups, that really thought this was real. Like they really believed this. They really truly did. And no amount of questioning on my part got me any closer to any answers that I could accept. And it just, indoctrination just did not take with me. And there we are. I figured out what the term atheist was when I was about 19. It was before somebody said it to me. And it was like, yeah, no, that seems about right. So that's about what I've been.
So what would you consider kind of the elevator pitch for Blue Collar Heathen, and kind of what's the channel all about?
The elevator pitch for Blue Collar Heathen. Blue Collar Heathen, the idea of that channel is to show that one need not have a theology degree or have gone to seminary or, taken, years of their life to study scripture or, theology to be able to talk about it, to be able to question it. That it isn't, that those kind of discussions are not just for, the ivory halls of academia. We can have that conversation in the backyard. We can have that conversation across a bar stool. Anybody can have this conversation, despite what, some apologists may want to tell you. There really isn't an education requirement to get into and participate in that conversation. And I don't care what letters you have after your name or what honorific your education has given you. If you say something stupid, you said something dumb, and now I'm the guy that'll be able to tell you that. I mean, I call out doctors on a daily basis. I don't have a problem calling you out. You being the apologist or whoever. I mean, it doesn't. I'm not going to defer to somebody's authority like that.
Well, what's that? Well, congratulations, by the way, because you've just passed doing a year of this. Each year of podcasting or YouTubing can feel like 7 years, when you consider
it really can.
Time flies and time maybe ages you as well. But what do you consider kind of the format of the show? Do you kind of do the same thing every time? Do you have a really strict script you stick to, or you get to kind of improvise?
I think that when I start seeing a real format is when I start changing it. When I become predictable to myself, I kind of want to change it. I mean, that said, we are creatures of habit, but I do some counter apologetics, and I view those type of response videos, they're usually response videos, as kind of one thing that we do. I'll do just straight response videos usually to Christian or Muslims, talking about an aspect of their religion that I find particularly problematic. And, we'll do, a direct video response. I'll do that type of stuff too. I don't have like a niche, I don't have and maybe that's why, my channel hasn't, shot up like that, but it's more of a generalized thing for me. There's many places that I can, speak to that make me go, and when I do that, that's probably where I'll pipe in and respond.
So in your year of doing episodes, what's kind of your frequency of how often you're posting?
It's been all over the place because of recent events, and you guys may have heard on the news this whole virus outbreak.
Like, what's going on?
But I have another video that like sitting in the pipeline, pretty much ready to hit record on, but there's just a few more things I need to get square on it before I do that. And that one will be a scripted video where that's just going to be one of my personal takes on a particular topic. I'm not going to get it. I found that when I talk about an upcoming video too much, I wind up jinxing myself on it, and we know, being rational people, that there's no such things as jinxes or anything like that. But we're going to pretend in this case that there are. So, I mean, I just, get myself psyched out on it. So, that's in the works, but my upload schedule tries to be every 2 weeks. Sometimes I slip. And I think in the last year, I've put up like 30 something videos. So that probably comes up to,
more than every other week. So you're ahead of schedule, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they're at the very beginning. I mean, you come into this and, you're all 90 miles an hour and gonna change things, use capital letters and everything when you say it. And so I was uploading stuff every week, but between the job and the kids and I ain't got the time. I just ain't got the time. So I settled on, all right, I'll do every other week. And then there's been, times where I've missed a month, or 2 months. So, I try to stick to every other week, but, sometimes life happens, and we got to live it.
I do want to say a quick hello to the chat room, because Jeannie and Deborah are the usual hangouts. They have well-worn bar stools, and then Inquisitive Quandary, who I've not seen before. So look at that.
Oh, IQ. Hey, how you doing? Hey, everybody. I don't have the chat up on here because I'm an idiot, and I'll get distracted between the scrolly thing and I can't do that. I can't do it. So if if there is something that you wanted to say to me in there, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to see it.
Well, the best part is I can see it, and I usually see questions, and I generally ignore them. So it's all good. And I'll answer them maybe out of context. Do you usually aim for a certain show length, or do you, I feel like what I've seen from you, kind of there's a variation in the length.
Yeah. No, I don't really have a target length. Like, I know there are people with much more successful channels than I that know a lot more about the YouTube and algorithms and such than I do, where they say, all right, well, if you have this many subscribers and, the moon is at this position in the sky and it's this time of day, you need to be uploading a video of this length for optimal views and all that. And I don't care about that. That isn't what I'm trying to do. I mean, the optimal length for a video is when the topic is covered and I can, where it seems natural to stop, and if I get to a thing where, it's an hour and a half, 2-3 hours, do I see myself doing feature length film type of stuff? No, that'll probably break it up into smaller, easier to digest chunks, probably, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, maybe. But, that's it. I don't have a set thing of, if it starts getting over 16 minutes, I freak out. I've got better things to freak out about.
Well, in your show's history, do you have episodes that you consider kind of your favorite shows so far?
Oh, yeah. I had a blast. I had a literal blast with this guy that was calling himself the Messiah. His name was Nick Fowler. And apparently Mr. Nick Fowler, the Messiah, he was a musician of notable talent, and had a couple of recording gigs, and appeared apparently on the Tonight Show or something with one of them. And I wasn't familiar with his band, but apparently was known around New York for being a rather talented musician and writer, and like has gone way over the deep end, and to the point where like I would consider him possibly dangerous at this point, because he's just so out there, and I'm not talking just just with the kind of out there, where somebody's like hyper religious. I mean, seems to have a complete disassociation with reality. I'm not going to try to, put a diagnosis on somebody like that, but if a diagnosis was made where there may be some actual psychosis going on with the guy, I would not be at all surprised. That would seem consistent with that type of patient that I've had before.
Well, one type of YouTube content that's very popular is a response video. And you started your show by doing a response video to the Pope.
Yes.
Not necessarily, his YouTube channel kind of sucks, but, it was about things that were said.
Yes.
So what is it that makes you decide, hey, I want to do a response video? Because you've done with the Messiah, and you've done with a fellow who has a similar name to you, Blue Collar Catholic.
Blue Collar Catholic, yeah. That was entertaining. We'll probably revisit each other again, I think.
I know, it's like the Rocky movies. You're just like, I can do one more. No biggie.
There it is. Yeah. No, we're Blue Collar Catholic, and I have a sneaking suspicion that eventually, we'll do that again. I didn't want to do too many of them, too near to each other, because I didn't want to turn this into the, Blue Collar Heathen versus Blue Collar Catholic channel. There's going to be other things that I want to cover, other things that, I want to discuss. So as far as to how I decide on what I'm going to respond to, I have some saved search terms that I'll put in every now and then. And when I see something, come up that, has a particular take on it, or, maybe it's a phrase, or, I couldn't tell you, like, there's no checklist of criteria that need be met. I have to see it. I have to be aware of it. And there has to be, if anybody else has responded to it, and by anybody else, I mean, there's been a number of people that I've wanted to respond to, and then I've gone and looked to see if any other atheist has, picked this up already. And Kate from Bionic Dance has nabbed me a couple of times. I guess she searches more often than I do. Cyrus has nabbed me a couple of times too. And, and that's fine. I mean, if what I was going to say was anything similar to what they did, no problem. Let it go. But if I'm going to come at it from a different angle, or a completely different, hook on it, then, I might still do it. It really depends. I got to see the video, and I got to see what's said.
Well, who started this between you and Blue Collar Catholic?
Actually, who started it was John from Godless Engineer. I popped into one of his live streams, and he's like, hey, you need to see this channel. So I went over there, and I was like, oh yeah, no, we're doing this. We're definitely doing this. So I spent a fair amount of time on Blue Collar Catholic's channel, looking for that video that I was going to respond to, just because our names were so similar. So something was going to go down. I wanted to find something that he had put out, pretty recently to the time, that, we could, have kind of a good conversation about. And I think I found that with his, the video that he had put up was countering the idea that all religions are the same, and it was supposed to be overcoming atheism. And, the way he phrased his his case in that video, it didn't seem like he realized that he was actually going to be talking to atheists with a title like that. So I stepped in to remind him that he was, and this is what at least this one might say in response. So that's how that went.
But didn't he respond to you back?
He did. He took the time to. I don't know that he actually watched the video that I put up. About. See, the thing is about. I thought something weird was going on because about 3 weeks after the video was released, I started getting more traffic on it than I would usually on, even response videos that I would do on my channel. And then I started getting thumbs down, like a lot of them, like, just as many thumbs up as I had on it. I had, that many thumbs down coming. And I was like, okay, well, maybe Mr. Blue Collar Catholic found it, or maybe his crew. I don't know. I mean, his channel was, a hell of a lot bigger than mine. I don't care. So, and then a couple weeks later, I find out that, so we're about, a month and a half or so after the original release, that he had responded to me. He did a 15-minute response video, talking to me. I don't think he mentioned me by name, at least in the title of it, but I knew he was talking to me just upon what the title was, and I forget what it is off the top of my head. I really should have, scanned my own thing there. But he took the time out to respond to me. I responded back to him, and that's about where we left it. But I think that conversation we could probably pick up at any time. And he seems like a nice enough guy. I mean, if we were at the same barbecue or something, I'd sit down and hang out with him, and we could probably have this conversation over some chicken wings or something. That's how I think it should be. I don't think it, like I said, you don't need to go be putting leather patches on your elbows to have it.
Well, would you ever consider doing kind of either a debate where you actually were live chatting with each other, or do you prefer the preparation of, seeing him do a full video and then responding to it with your own, with time to kind of think about everything you're going to say?
I don't know that I've ever had an actual content creator ask me that. I mean, I've had, friends say, "Oh, would you debate this guy?" And I don't know. I don't know. I enjoy watching some debates. There are some debaters that I really do enjoy watching, and but I'll go through a binge watching of them, and then I'm just like, all right, time out. I need a break. I need a break from that. Sorry, I'm changing cups here. Yeah, we're going from a Sumatra in a ceramic mug to the Sumatra in the travel mug, because that keeps it warm while I'm in here.
Well, you need help to stay awake during the whole episode, so I understand.
No, I pretty much drink coffee. If I'm conscious, that's what keeps me from lapsing into a coma. At this point, it really doesn't keep me awake. It just keeps the headaches at bay.
Do you have a specific kind of coffee ritual? Because I don't drink coffee, but my wife does, so I know the specific way I have to make it every morning.
Yeah, no, my specific ritual is to pour the beans into the grinder, brew the pot, take the pot, pour it into a cup, and drink it. I drink it black. I don't need the milk. I don't need the sugar. I don't need it. I don't need any of that. I could just black, and I'm good to go. Yeah, so I mean, it cuts down on, it just saves time.
That's true. It's simple. If it's the way it comes out is the way you want to drink it. Right.
And if, and the thing is when you put black coffee into the travel mug right before you're going for a 12-hour shift where, it can stay hot in there for a long time. If you start cooling it down with milk or anything like that, it'll get too cold. So after 4 or 5 calls, I can still hit that and be good.
Now, one of the things I guess that Christians constantly say is that what they believe in has all this history, and it is just this great wisdom that cannot possibly be countered.
Mm.
You did an episode, and it was one of the first ones that I'd watched of yours, about St. Thomas Aquinas, and I think it was 5 proofs of God.
Yes, his 5 ways.
You don't have to like quote it exactly, but what was it about that made you say, hey, this is perfect for me? This is kind of my version of a however many, 900 years later kind of response video, that kind of thing?
Yeah. My thing on that video is, I mean, I understand what the Christians say, that there's a bunch of history here. We have, X amount of years of, theological thought and, but, many of the current apologetics really come back to some version of, maybe a modernized version of, or a twist off of Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways. And I decided to attack really the root of the tree there, because bullshit is bullshit, whether it's 18 minutes old or 1800 years. It doesn't matter. And my thing there is, I would like to see those type of arguments be treated like, like phlogiston, like the debunked scientific theory. Okay, we know it's debunked. We know it's BS. Okay, get rid of it, move on. But philosophy doesn't permit that. Aquinas will be in print, in hardcover, in perpetuity. And to me, that's just several honors higher than it ever warranted in the first place, because it's just abject nonsense.
But it's old nonsense.
It is old nonsense. It is old nonsense. And, one can, maybe look at it as a, he was working with the scientific knowledge of his day. He didn't have access to Newtonian physics or relativity. I mean, he was working pretty much off of what Aristotle said. But you know what? Aristotle was wrong too. So, we know this. So, while the sciences, don't have so much of an issue. Oh, there is a train coming. I do apologize. I live in a train town. If it's too loud, Zach, just let me know, and I'll mute for a minute or 3.
Gosh,
maybe you could do
a little. Unless you're not getting hit by the train, you're okay.
Yeah, well, there's tracks on this side. There's tracks on that side. They're usually not running this time of day. It's.
So you're on the right or the wrong side?
What?
Right or wrong side of the tracks?
I'm on the wrong side of both tracks. I'm right in between them. The tracks come to they cross and merge up there, up the road about a mile up the road. So I literally have it on each side of the street.
On all sides.
Yeah, yeah. I have the isolation of trackdom. But I'm sorry. With the train coming in, I spaced out. Zach, I do apologize. I forget where I was.
Well, you're talking about St. Thomas Aquinas, and
Aquinas. Yeah.
There could be. I'm sure it's out there, really good videos about the popes and what they actually did in their real lives, and then all the saints and what they really did. Like Saint Valentine killed all these, that kind of stuff. But there's all this backstory behind the Catholics say they believe in one God, but then they create all these saints. So I feel like they created a version of the Roman pantheon. We're just going to add more gods, even though they're not really good. They're minor gods, right?
Right. Yeah, that was very difficult for me. That was one of the things about Christianity that was always one of my unanswered questions. I mean, if you're going to say that there's one God, okay, then this whole Trinity thing doesn't make sense, and the Catholics got to be really screwed, because they have saints on purpose, and it just seems very. What they were saying was that there was one God, but what it seemed to me in practice seemed to be something else, and I distinctly remember getting my ass kicked when I was about 12 years old for suggesting that they were not as monotheistic as they thought that they were. I distinctly remember getting beat down at the bus stop for that.
Well, see, that's what you get for being an atheist.
Yeah.
On Atheist Day, according to some people, that's what today is.
Oh yes, Happy Atheist Day.
Totally forgot about that.
Yes, Happy Atheist Day.
So we have people in the chat room who are way more into philosophy than I am. So one thing that Deborah said, if you go after Plato, I won't be happy. So I don't know if you have any takedowns of Plato or not. But
no, I mean, I don't see much appeal to Plato in justifying abject nonsense. I don't see it. I mean, I'm not saying it's not there, but I don't see it. I don't have a problem with individual philosophers as much as some of the things that they said, and not even so much some of the things that they said, because they were products of their time. I have a problem more with people in our time justifying their bullshit with philosophical ideas from thousands of years ago that can't stand up to scrutiny. That's where I've got an issue. If somebody's doing, I don't know, X harmful act and is justifying it with Plato, then I'm sorry, I may have to, point out why that's a bad idea. If they're representing that philosopher accurately. I don't know.
Well, here's a good idea, and this is another thing that stood out when I was doing research about you.
Mm.
You like you said, you don't want to do like a response video that somebody's already done. You don't want to make the argument that's already made like 50 times. An argument that you have that I don't think a lot of atheists have is your theory on churches being taxed. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. This seems to come up every couple of years or so, usually associated with some type of church scandal. And in this case, coming back to the Catholics' inability to keep themselves from raping young boys. So it seems to me that this gets offered about after a church scandal, and we need to tax the churches, blah 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 blah, where it's usually put forward the idea as a punitive type of tax, where you did wrong and we're going to tax you into submission. And I can't get that. Isn't how I want my government to work. Okay, that isn't how I want it to work. I live in Pennsylvania. They have sin tax on things like like cigarettes and alcohol and stuff like that. It's legit called sin tax.
I mean, they have those weird state stores. I remember where you couldn't even go into the liquor store. You had to go up front and tell them what you wanted, and they'd get it for you. I think they've changed that.
Yeah, they did change that slightly.
But it's still state, right? Is it all state run, all liquor stores in Pennsylvania, or did they change that?
Yeah, no, they are state run. Yes.
And then like grocery stores just recently.
Yeah, like within the last couple of months, you're been able to buy beer or wine, outside of a state-run store. Aside from bars, restaurants, and that kind of thing. But so to the taxes bit, I don't agree with punitive taxes as a general rule. I think that is rather discriminatory just by design. So I have a problem with it from that aspect. The other thing that I have is I don't believe that the churches should be taxed, because I believe taxes should be for like legit businesses. A legit business, they conduct their business, they get their income from, the goods or services that they provide. And, they're owed, they have to owe tax to the state or, to the federal government, And churches I don't see as legit businesses. And I don't want to see churches viewed as a tax center particularly for the federal government, because if atheism and agnosticism and skepticism continue on the path that they've been going for the last few years, we're going to start seeing church attendance keep going down. I do not want federal dollars bailing out a tax base for the federal government, because the federal government starts getting pissed off when they have this tax income and then it starts drying up. They start getting antsy. They start getting mad and they start bailing it out. The federal government starts bailing out the churches. I think we're working against ourselves there. And I think, calling the actions that they perform as, finable offenses, like, criminally liable offenses, is more in line with what they're doing, for one. And, would not hamper our, the advancement of atheism, skepticism, and, just critical thought.
Well, is there a way to find churches for these kind of events? Like, I don't even know what, like nonprofits, like American Atheist is the nonprofit, and they can't say, hey, vote for this candidate. They can just give money, I think, in more of a vague way.
Yeah.
And with churches, their books
conduct themselves. They have ways in which they have to conduct.
And they're definitely going to be audited. People are going to look at their books. Churches don't even have that at this point. Churches seem to have like special rights.
Correct.
Taxing part is definitely an interesting aspect of it because, like you said, not a business, but boy, they bring in a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
it'd be nice to know, like, how much do these churches give to this kind of charitable stuff versus building giant buildings? Because, man, every church I've been to is really nice.
Oh, yeah. 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 So, I think that, what you bring up are some great points. And, how should the fines be structured? What should be considered a finable offense? These are great questions. Unfortunately, I don't see us as being in the position where those even become relevant questions to the topic at any point soon, because I don't think any prosecutor, at least in the greater Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, has the testicular fortitude to actually stand up to and fine these churches. Even as far as the Archdiocese of Harrisburg, which has recently filed bankruptcy.
I know that blew my mind.
Go bankrupt. I don't know, but the way they have that structured, it's got to be pretty neat.
That has to be a lot of money for them to just give up and go, we're out.
Yeah, because they just made a new school. They've got, all these new different facilities all over, the greater Harrisburg metropolitan area. Well-maintained facilities. Like you said, some of these things are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous buildings. The old Bishop McDevitt High School, it's, mondo huge school, sitting right there, empty as hell. There's an old nursing home that nobody's done anything with. Who knows what happens with them now? But if these things are going, if that diocese is going bankrupt, how does that happen? How does Rome insulate themselves from that? What are these, like franchises? like McDonald's or something?
Move to the next town, I suppose.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with a current situation, something called a pandemic, and
yes.
You your day job is paramedic, so
yes.
I don't even know a good question to ask because there's so many, and I'm not going to say, hey, can you diagnose the virus and how it works? That's not really it, but does this situation affect your day job? And I guess we get to start saying to medical people, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for that. But yeah, in a long story short, yes, it absolutely does affect my daily life. In some ways, it makes it almost easier, because I have been noticing that people are working from home. People are working from home.
Oh, yeah. You can't do
There's
that.
not as much traffic.
Yeah, that's true.
There's not as much traffic for me to get up to work.
Mhm.
I've also noticed that gas prices have been plummeting, which is nice. Because when we have to spend all this money on fuel, that's less money that we have for other things. So that's cool. So maybe all y'all that are all working from home now, maybe say, hey, why do I have to come back at all? Because working from home, I can get used to this. I can throw the shirt and tie on, for the video conference as I'm sitting there in no pants, or however you do it. I'm not going to tell you how to live your lives.
Yeah, don't judge.
But
you can't go to work with no pants, probably. Maybe. Hard to say.
but
Casual Friday, maybe.
But it does it is affecting us. It is a serious concern, not just for the pre-hospital medical community, but for the medical community, at large, including the receiving facilities of the hospitals, as well as the CDC and the various emergency organizations, your state and federal organizations, the PEMA, FEMA, all that. We are not prepared for this. It is a real thing. It's not a hoax. It's not a flu. It's not a pneumonia. It is a new type of respiratory infection that is similar to SARS, which you guys may remember from a couple of years ago, and that was deadly. This is also deadly. It can be even more deadly when combined with other respiratory infections, such as influenza A, which, newsflash, is still going around. So yeah, no, it's serious. And the pre-hospital community, the paramedicine, we are not at all prepared for this. We do not have the equipment. The equipment that some of us have is expired to the tune of several years ago, where the respirator, the N95 mask, that if they are available at all, and if you can get one in your size, it probably won't be in date. And because they're so scarce, they'll be pressed into service anyway. And, whether the manufacturer recommendations, are compatible with the CDC recommendations for how this is used or how many times it's reused, that sounds like an excellent question for lawyers. And guess what? That ain't me. There's many of us in the pre-hospital theater that have just resigned ourselves to the fact that we are going to get this. And for those that have had respiratory issues in the past or any other serious risks, we just say, all right, I might die from this, but is this going to be a line of duty death, or my kid's going to get screwed out of those benefits too? That's really our primary question a lot of the time.
Is it hard from your kind of experience, to make those kind of connections, to say like, hey, I got sick due to my job and I'm supposed to get benefits because of that? And maybe not.
This is year number 17 or 18 for me, on a truck in some form or another. So risk is an inherent part of the job. Whether it's working an accident scene on the side of the highway because some asshole won't get into the next lane, when you're working an accident scene, or someone just blows through an intersection as you're coming in through lights and sirens and T-bones you, or the stresses of the job and the erosion of the societal support structure that comes a place of the lack of pay in this job, causes you to start a shotgun. This is the reality in which we work. That's how it is. So is it hard for me to come to that? That's just another. It isn't the first time I've had to question whether an action performed on behalf of the job would yield the benefits that my children are supposed to get in the eventual, if I die as a result of those. That isn't the first time I've had to ask that question. It's not a novel question to me.
Well, how is where you are, and I guess Pennsylvania in general, in terms of readiness? What's the situation right now? I mean, it's hard.
Readiness, nobody's ready for this
right now.
Nobody is ready for this. Anybody that says that they are ready for this is probably orange and lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. And you could tell that they're lying because word sounds fell out of that face hole. Nobody's ready for this. When the largest, most prestigious hospitals in the country are not ready for this, there is no way an EMS organization with 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 people, 300 people is going to be ready for this. If Johns Hopkins is not ready for this, if Hershey Medical Center, if Penn State Hershey is not ready for this, nobody's ready for this. Nobody's ready for this. We don't understand. We don't have adequate testing to even see how many infected there are. We don't know what the death rate is. We don't know really what the infection rate is. We don't have the methods for testing. We don't have the methodology for testing. We don't have good screening criteria. We don't have equipment for it. And in the event that we get a case like Italy, we don't have the ventilators to keep everybody alive. And you're not supposed to, just sit here. And what we would normally do is take a bag valve mask, which is kind of looks like a clearish football, and you squeeze it to squeeze air into somebody's lungs when they're intubated, and they have a breathing tube in their throat. And another train's coming. I do apologize.
It's a lot of trains,
we don't have enough of those, but you're not supposed to do that with the patients with the virus, because when you do that, there's not a filter small enough that has, small enough micron on that bag valve mask to contain the virus. So you're essentially going to be dosing yourself with it when you do that.
So you're saying it's time to look to prayer?
No. Was that quick enough for you? No. No. Now is not the time to look for prayer. I'll tell you what. If it may be, if you believe in the power of prayer and you get yourself calm from the power of prayer, if that documented placebo effect of it can calm you down and let you engage in a situation more rationally, or at least slow your breathing down so you're not breathing in as much of the virus, then it could help you in that situation, absolutely. But as far as you pray for this thing and this thing going to happen, I could not make that connection. But I do believe that prayer could have power as kind of like a self-meditation over an individual, and as somebody that gains benefit from that. I don't begrudge them at all. Rock on with yourself. Whatever works. Me personally, I'd throw some tunes on and be like, all right, now I got to get to work.
Okay, so at the end of the show, we like to. It's funny that you say we, I say we. It's one of us, by the way. It's okay. The multiple personalities totally don't count. We were talking about, jokes, special skills. Apparently, you have a B-list superpower that you would like to share.
Yeah.
You get to share whether you like to or not, because here we are.
All right, yeah. I do have a B-list superpower. I can make like song parodies pretty much on the spot to whatever song is on the radio if I'm moderately familiar with it, and whatever is going on. I've done this, to for COVID-19 a couple of times already. I don't have anything formally worked out for it, but I think you guys would probably recognize the songs if I was to do them. And yeah, I've done a bunch of these over the years. I generally do a lot of them in traffic, while we're on the truck, maybe about the BMW that's in front of us.
So do you have like go-to karaoke songs? I feel like you might have a good singing voice.
I'm sorry, what?
A good karaoke go-to song? If you can do parodies, I mean,
no, I don't know that I could say that.
You're a lyricist, not the performer. You let somebody else do the singing for you. Is that what it is?
No, not really. I mean, what was the? I just put it up on Twitter. Oh yeah, it was that. What the hell was the name of the artist? That "Call Me Maybe" song. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Right. So what did I say? It says, "I just met you, and this is crazy, but I heard you coughing. COVID maybe." That would be something like would fall out of my face while we're going down the road.
See,
so that's my B-list superpower.
You like endless skills. Like you can consume your body weight in coffee.
Yep.
You can work 12-hour shifts, no big deal. You take down 800-year-old saints. I mean, I don't know what this guy can't do. So how do people find Blue Collar Heathen?
Well, go to YouTube. It's this video repository site, and you probably see this one here. And look for Blue Collar Heathen on YouTube, and I will be there. I'm also available on Twitter at BCHVids. And that's about the socials, right? Because it's hip to say socials now. It's more hip to say socials than it is hip.
Totally.
But yeah, that's about where you find me on the socials. And Zach, it's been I can't believe it's already been almost an hour already. I really have had a good time here.
Time flies.
Talking with you, and it's been great. And anybody that's been there in the chat, if there was something that you wanted to ask me, and I didn't address it, with the conversation with Zach, please do hit me up on Twitter or over on the channel. Then I'll see if you have a question. I'll be happy to answer it for you. And Zach, thanks so much for having me on, man. It's been a real pleasure being here.
We're welcome. And just if you want to reach out to Geoff, just go to his YouTube channel and make a comment. That's how we got in touch.
Yeah.
Some people have giant, huge, massive channels, and that's not going to work. But the people who, have talent, but you're like, you know what? I'm just going to keep it calm so people can still, have a day job and have a life. Then you can reach out. You can reach out and get a response, and it's all good. And I'm probably talking too much because it's been too long. So thank you, Geoff, for being on. It's been a lot of fun.
No, thanks, Zach. All right. We'll see you next time. Y'all take it easy.